There's a dangerous misconception about silence that most people carry with them their entire lives. They think silence is a weakness. They assume that when someone goes quiet, it means they've given up, or they're too broken to speak. But silence is not surrender. It's not passive, and it's certainly not weak. Silence, in its most raw and intentional form, is power. It's the kind of power that makes people uncomfortable, not because it lacks volume, but because it forces them to face themselves. Because when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop justifying your pain, your choices, your growth, something incredible happens. People start to notice. Your silence suddenly becomes the loudest voice in the room. Most people are conditioned to believe that noise equals strength, that being the loudest person in the argument gives you the upper hand, that if you can out-talk, out-shout, or out-debate someone, you've somehow won. But in reality, the moment you no longer feel the need to participate in that noise, when you consciously choose silence over chaos, that's when you win. Because silence doesn't beg, it doesn't plead, it doesn't try to prove a point. It just exists. And in that existence, it carries a storm of truth and clarity that words can't touch. When you go silent, people begin to feel the space you once filled. The absence of your voice, your presence, your validation. It hits harder than any words you could have spoken. Because now they have nothing to push against, nothing to argue with, nothing to dismiss, just silence. And silence, when it's deliberate, demands attention. It doesn't ask for it, it commands it. That's when your silence becomes a statement, not of defeat, but of power. A declaration that you are done participating in cycles that don't serve you. Done explaining your value. Done justifying your boundaries. Done defending your emotions to people who never intended to understand them in the first place. And here's the part that really stings for others. When you go silent, they start to hear their own noise. They start to sit with their own thoughts. They begin to question what they did to lose your voice. That silence becomes a mirror, and what they see in that reflection is often uncomfortable. Because now, there's no distraction, no debate, no justification to hide behind. Just the impact of your absence, and for many, that's unbearable. You see, silence isn't about shutting down. It's about rising above. It's about choosing peace over performance. It's about knowing that your energy is too valuable to be spent proving your worth to people who never saw it to begin with. Silence is about control, not the kind that manipulates, but the kind that liberates. It's self-respect in its purest form, and when you wield it correctly, it changes the game. You're no longer playing by their rules, you're writing your own. People often mistake silence for emptiness, but your silence, it's full of strength, full of confidence, full of the quiet knowing that you're on your path, regardless of who understands it. And that's the kind of silence that doesn't just speak, it roars. And those who once underestimated you, they'll hear it loud and clear, whether they want to or not. You want to know when people start paying attention, when you stop fighting for their approval, when you stop chasing them, when you finally realize that you can't force respect, love, or loyalty from anyone. That's the moment when they begin to realize they've lost you. Not physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And that's when the silence becomes deadly for them. I remember when I used to give so much of myself, time, energy, loyalty, love. I gave it freely, without hesitation. I didn't need to question whether I was giving enough, because I knew that my presence, my actions, would speak for themselves. But the more I gave, the more people around me assumed that I would always be there, that I was a constant, a never-ending source of support and energy. The problem with being too consistent is that people start to mistake your loyalty for weakness. They forget that your consistency comes from strength, and they begin to take you for granted. They become entitled to your presence, to your time, to your effort, and eventually they expect you to keep giving without ever reciprocating. And that's when the silence comes. At first, they don't understand it. They don't know how to react. They're so used to you being there, responding, supporting, loving, that when you go silent, they can't process it. It's like a switch flips, and everything that once felt familiar is now gone. But here's the truth about silence. It's not about stopping caring. It's about caring for yourself. It's about reclaiming your energy. It's about realizing that the only person you are truly responsible for is you. The moment I stopped giving my energy to people who only knew how to take, I realized how much I had neglected myself in the process. I had poured so much of myself into others that I forgot about my own needs. I started caring for myself, and in doing so, I started understanding the value of my silence. Silence is not weakness, it is strength in its purest form. People will tell you that silence is a sign of fear, but it's not. Silence is a choice, a conscious decision to stop giving your energy to those who don't appreciate it. It's a decision to protect your peace, even if it means letting go of people who were never meant to stay in your life. When you stop fighting for someone's attention, respect, or love, you take back your power. You become the one in control. And that control, it's what kills them. Because here's what they don't understand. People don't fear your anger. They fear your indifference. They fear your lack of response. They fear when they can no longer get a reaction from you, because that's when they realize they don't matter. They start to feel it. They replay every conversation in their minds. They wonder if they missed something. They try to figure out what went wrong. And the more they think about it, the more they realize they took you for granted. They start to wonder what happened to the person who was always there, always listening, always giving. And then comes the hardest part for them to accept. They don't know what you think anymore. They don't know what you feel. They don't know if you're still thinking about them, still caring for them, still waiting for them. And that uncertainty, it eats them alive. People crave control. It's human nature. They want to feel important. They want to feel like they still matter. And the moment you stop feeding that need by responding, by justifying, by explaining, they lose that control. They can't manipulate you anymore. They can't guilt-trip you. They can't bring you back into their world of drama and chaos. That's when they start to panic. They check their phones obsessively. They go through old messages, reread texts, stalk your social media. They search for any sign that you still care. They wait for a response that will never come. And what does that silence tell them? It tells them that you've moved on. It tells them that they no longer have access to you. And here's where it gets interesting. That's when they realize they've lost. They've lost not because of anything you did, but because of everything they did. They mistook your consistency for weakness, your loyalty for an obligation. They thought you would always be there. But now, your absence, your silence, is the biggest punishment they could ever receive. Because silence isn't something you can just undo. It's not something they can control. And now they're left with nothing but their own regrets. You know what hurts them the most? It's not the anger you show. It's not the words you say. It's not the dramatic exits. It's the fact that they didn't lose you in an argument. They didn't lose you in a confrontation. They lost you in the silence that followed their disrespect. They thought you would scream. They thought you would beg. They thought you would chase after them. But you didn't. You just quietly walked away. And that's what kills them. They can't fill the void. They can surround themselves with distractions, with people who pretend to care, with fake smiles and shallow validation. But deep down, they know they'll never find someone like you. Because what you gave was rare. What you gave was genuine. And what you gave was real. And they treated it like it was disposable. And now, they live with that regret. They'll replay the moments in their heads, wishing they had treated you better. They'll imagine the conversations they'll never have with you, the apologies that will never be spoken aloud. But it's too late. You're gone, not because you're bitter, but because you've evolved. You've outgrown the chaos. You've outgrown the need to explain your worth. You've outgrown the drama of people who never took the time to understand you. That's not revenge. It's self-respect. It's growth. And that's what they can't stand. Because now, you're not available to them anymore. Not because you hate them, but because you've chosen yourself. You've chosen peace. You've chosen your own well-being over their need for validation. And that decision, that's what kills them. They see you thriving in silence, and it drives them crazy. They can't comprehend how you're at peace. They can't understand how you've found your own strength without them. And that exposes everything they lacked. Without your validation, they have to face the truth. They weren't good for you. They didn't value you. They didn't deserve you, and deep down, they know it. They'll never admit it. But they will feel it. They will carry it with them every single day. The regret, the pain, the realization that they had something real, and they lost it. And they didn't lose it to someone else. They lost it to the version of you that no longer needs them. The version of you that no longer craves their approval, their validation, or their attention. And that's what kills them. So let them wonder. Let them ask questions. Let them speculate. Let them talk. Because the truth is, they're not talking to you. They're talking to the version of you they can never reach again. And in that silence, they'll feel the consequences of their actions. They'll feel the weight of what they lost. And the longer they stay stuck in that uncertainty, the more they'll realize they'll never get you back. Not because you're punishing them, but because you've found something greater than revenge. You've found your peace.